You walk into a room, you don't announce yourself. You don't need to. She feels it immediately. Not because you're loud, not because you're trying, but because you're grounded, because you know your value. And that energy, it cuts through everything. If this resonates with you, subscribe now because we're going deeper. Most men don't understand this. They think value is something you display, something you prove, something you earn through her validation, but that's the opposite of what works. Value isn't performed, it's embodied, it's quiet, it's still, it's internal. And when a man truly knows it, women sense it before he says a word. Let's be clear about something. A man who knows his value doesn't chase, he doesn't beg, he doesn't lower himself, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. He understands something most men never learn. His attention is worth something. His time is worth something. His presence is worth something. And he doesn't give it away freely to someone who doesn't see it. This isn't about playing games. It's about knowing who you are and refusing to compromise that for anyone. Women feel this instantly. They feel the difference between a man who's solid and a man who's shaky, between a man who's centered and a man who's desperate, between a man who respects himself and a man who doesn't. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Desperation repels, neediness repels. Even if she liked you at first, neediness will destroy it. Because neediness says one thing: I don't believe I'm enough. And if you don't believe it, why should she? Think about the men she's met before you, the ones who texted too much, the ones who agreed with everything she said, the ones who rearranged their entire lives just to be available. She didn't respect them. She couldn't. Not because she's cruel, but because respect requires something to respect. And a man with no boundaries has nothing to respect. A man who knows his value doesn't operate like that. He has a life, a purpose, a mission that exists outside of her. She's not the center of his world. She's welcome in it, but she's not the foundation. That foundation is him, his goals, his growth, his standards, and that's what makes him magnetic, because she can feel that he doesn't need her to complete him. He's already complete. She's an addition, not a solution, and that changes everything. Most men give their power away without realizing it. They hand her the remote control to their emotions. She texts back. They're happy. She doesn't. They spiral. She's busy. They panic. She pulls back. They chase harder. That's not love, that's dependency. And dependency isn't attractive, it's exhausting. A man who knows his value doesn't do that. He stays steady, he stays calm, he stays in his center. Not because he doesn't care, but because his emotional state isn't tied to her behavior. He cares about her, but he cares about himself more. And that's not selfish. That's necessary, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead from a place of weakness. You can't love someone well if you don't love yourself first. She feels that. She feels when a man is whole, when he's not looking for her to fix him, when he's not using her as a distraction from his own emptiness, and it draws her in. Because most men she meets are broken and pretending, but you're different. You're not pretending, you're not performing, you're just being, and that authenticity is rare. Let's talk about attraction for a moment. Real attraction isn't logical. It's not a checklist. It's not about saying the right things or doing the right things. It's about energy. And the energy of a man who knows his value is unmistakable. It's calm, it's assured, it's grounded. It doesn't waver based on her mood. It doesn't shift based on her interest level. It just is. And that consistency is what builds trust, because she knows you're not going to fall apart if she has a bad day. She knows you're not going to lose yourself in her. She knows you're stable. And in a world full of unstable men, that's everything. But here's where most guys mess it up. They think knowing their value means being cold, being distant, being unavailable. That's not it. Knowing your value means being present without being needy, being interested without being desperate, being available without being always available. It's a balance. And it requires emotional maturity. It requires you to be comfortable with uncertainty, comfortable with not knowing where things are going, comfortable with the possibility that she might walk away, and being okay with that, because you know you'll be fine either way. That's the power. not in controlling her, but in controlling yourself. Most men are terrified of losing her, so they cling. They overcompensate, they try to lock her down before she even knows what she wants, and in doing so, they push her away because she can feel the fear, she can sense the insecurity, and it repels her, not because she wants you to not care, but because she wants you to care about yourself as much as you care about her. A man who knows his value doesn't fear loss, he respects it. He understands that not everyone is meant to stay, and he's okay with that because he's not trying to convince anyone of his worth. He already knows it, and he's looking for someone who sees it too. Not someone he has to convince, not someone he has to perform for, but someone who matches his energy, someone who respects him the way he respects himself. And if she doesn't, he walks. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect because he knows his value and he won't settle for less than he deserves. This is what separates boys from men. Boys need validation. Men give it to themselves. Boys chase approval. Men approve of themselves. Boys adjust themselves to fit. Men stay true and let the right people find them. And women feel this difference immediately. They feel it in your posture, in your tone, in your eye contact, in the way you hold space. You don't feel silence with nervousness. You let it breathe. You don't rush to agree. You speak your truth. You don't shrink yourself. You take up space, not aggressively, but confidently. And that confidence isn't arrogance, it's peace. It's the peace of a man who's done the work, who's faced himself, who's built himself, who's chosen himself, and now walks through the world knowing he's enough. Let's address something important. Knowing your value doesn't mean you never struggle. It doesn't mean you never doubt. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you don't define yourself by your struggles. You don't let doubt consume you. You don't use your imperfections as excuses. You own them, you work on them, you grow through them, and you keep moving forward because your value isn't conditional. It's not based on your bank account. It's not based on your job title. It's not based on how she responds to you. It's based on your character, your integrity, your commitment to growth, your ability to show up for yourself day after day. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, that's what she feels. That's what draws her in, not the surface stuff, but the depth, the substance, the realness. And here's the thing most men don't realize. When you know your value, you stop tolerating disrespect. You stop accepting breadcrumbs. You stop making excuses for people who don't treat you right because you understand something fundamental. How people treat you is a reflection of how much they value you. And if they don't value you, you move on. No drama, no argument, no trying to change their mind. You just move on. Because you know there are people out there who will value you, who will see you, who will appreciate you, and you're not going to waste time on those who don't. This is the energy she feels, the energy of a man who won't beg, won't chase, won't lower his standards because he doesn't have to. He's already enough. And he's looking for someone who's enough to, not someone he has to fix, not someone he has to save, not someone he has to convince, but an equal, a partner, someone who shows up the way he shows up. And if that's not her, he wishes her well and keeps moving because his value isn't determined by who stays. It's determined by who he is, and that never changes. Now, let's talk about what this looks like in real life. It's the way you respond to a text or don't respond immediately because you're busy living. It's the way you make plans, but don't cancel your life to accommodate hers. It's the way you listen, but don't agree just to avoid conflict. It's the way you show interest, but don't become obsessed. It's balance, it's maturity, it's self-control, and it's attractive because it shows you're not controlled by impulse. You're controlled by intention. You're not reactive, you're responsive, you're not desperate, you're deliberate, and that intentionality is what separates you from everyone else. She's used to men who react, who get emotional, who lose their cool. But you stay grounded, you stay calm, you stay you, no matter what she does, no matter what she says, because your peace isn't tied to her actions. Your worth isn't tied to her words. You're solid, and she feels that, and it makes her feel safe. Not safe in a boring way, but safe in a way that lets her relax, lets her be herself, lets her stop testing you, because she realizes you're not going anywhere. not because you're desperate, but because you chose to be there. And that choice is powerful. Most men are there by default, by neediness, by fear of being alone, but you're there by choice, by intention, by desire, and that makes all the difference. So, how do you build this? How do you become a man who knows his value? You start by doing the work, the internal work, the uncomfortable work. You face your insecurities, you challenge your beliefs, you question your patterns, you stop blaming others, you take responsibility for your life, for your choices, for your growth. You build something, a career, a skill, a purpose, something that gives you identity outside of relationships. You set standards for yourself, for others, and you stick to them. You stop seeking validation and start giving it to yourself. You stop comparing and start competing with who you were yesterday. You stop waiting for permission and start taking action. This is how you build value, not by pretending, but by becoming. And when you become that man, you won't have to convince anyone. They'll feel it immediately because energy doesn't lie. Presence doesn't lie. Confidence doesn't lie. And a man who truly knows his value radiates all three. So the question isn't whether she'll feel it. The question is whether you're willing to do what it takes to become him. The man who doesn't need her approval, the man who doesn't chase her validation, the man who knows his worth and lives accordingly. That's the man she can't ignore. That's the man she respects. That's the man she wants, not because he's perfect, but because he's real, he's grounded, he's whole. And in a world full of broken men pretending to be strong, that's rare. So be that man. Do the work, know your value, and watch how everything changes. If you're ready to step into that version of yourself, subscribe now because this is just the